Hello, everyone. It's been a while, huh? Um, yep, we're back for some Higurashi. This is the final theory sheet. Before we get into the answer, so this is pretty important. So yeah, first off, I'm sorry it took a while. I'm not gonna lie, a lot of it has been procrastination. There were a lot of days where I just didn't do it because I was busy binging a show or something. And like the day I put the update on the channel, it's like, yeah, I'll be done next week. I literally just procrastinated that whole week, so it took an extra week. I'm sorry. It's just a curse, man. I am a master procrastinator. But we did it. I did it. It took a while, but I'm pretty happy with it. I'll be honest, my views on theory solving have changed throughout. I think when I first started, I wanted this to be sort of a make-up for not being very active in making theories in Umineko, but as many people pointed out, this isn't really about the theories, it's about the ride, which I respect. I also, that being said, it's not like I don't like making the theory sheet. Just because I procrastinate doesn't mean I don't like it. It's just that I do that with literally everything that's important. So I don't. It's all fun. All right. I enjoyed making this. And that being said, even though this is a game more of speculation and theories than hard facts, I think I'm pretty happy, especially with this theory sheet. I got a really, really good theory that I want to show you guys. I was really happy with it, and I'm glad I struck gold. I'm like omega confident with this theory. It's like the confidence when I had the clinic/hospital theory, with the actual viability of the theory being like close to the burnt Takano theory. So it's probably like one of the best ones I've had so far. So hopefully that's right. First off, I'll just go over the formatting because literally every theory sheet has different formatting. This time I went with a main header, sometimes a description. So like a main like topic of the arts, then you have the art, or not the arts, the theory, then you have like an underlying thing for the theory title with the description. I didn't put evidence because again I do a lot of speculating, it's my sort of thing. Feels dumb putting evidence and then just doing dumb speculations. I can see why people don't like that. Also in some places I do even lower brackets, like when I got into. So I guess I should just show the categories. I have multi-art theories, which are kind of the bigger theories that work throughout different arts. I go over character theories, which are specifically, sorry, don't worry, it's not Corona. It's specifically theories. It's multi-art theories, but just based on specific characters. I kind of just split it up. So I did a lot of the characters, the main four plus some of the side ones. Art theories are specific questions / unsolved crimes from specific arts that I kind of went over. Memes, I don't have a lot of memes, honestly. Kind of dried up after using all my energy on the other stuff. And then don't look at that. Then we have the Discord checklist. If you don't know, I'm in a Discord where I post my stuff too as sort of an alternate. I mean, it still goes to my YouTube video, but it's almost like an alternative platform where I interact with different people. They have like a checklist, mainly because I don't think most people do theory sheets like me, so it's more for them, but I kind of go over their checklist, make sure I hit some of the stuff. And yeah, 26 pages, not bad. I actually think, wasn't one of them like bigger than this? I think it was Honor Takashi, but that document is like messed up. Let's head away. But yeah, so this will probably be a long video. I was thinking of doing that new chapter thing on YouTube videos, but let's be honest, I probably won't do it. It sounds like work. I will be posting this in the description if you just want to go over it by yourself, but as I've warned before, it's not like this is I'm sure there are grammar mistakes and stuff like that, and even though it looks nice, well, I think it looks nice, it's basically just notes for me to go over in the video, plus notes for like later that I can check up on. So I do recommend watching the video for the maximum effects, though this will be a long video, so feel free to multitask. I probably would. But if you want to watch, it'll be cool. We'll be scrolling down and I'll try to highlight what I'm talking about. And since this is the final arc theory sheet thingy, again, probably your last chance if you want to question any of the theories. Those are fun. But probably more importantly would be if I missed anything important, like not like missing theories, but missing like events, like, oh, Aiden, you didn't talk about the part where Satoko is questioned about her broccoli knowledge. That's very important to establish that she's probably colorblind. It's stuff like that, which I didn't address that, but it's fine. I've been told by multiple people that she's probably colorblind. But yeah, so if you think I'm missing anything important or you just want me to elaborate more on the theories, feel free to leave it. Literally now is the time before we move on to the answer arc. So let's get started. This will be a bit, I might actually like split this. Well, I don't think I'll split the video into 2 parts. But I mean, if it's over 2 hours, I might. But what I was gonna say, maybe I might, because right now it's actually midnight, so I don't know if I can finish recording this in one sitting, so I might have to do this Monday and post this in an off time. But we'll see. I'm recording this Sunday, by the way, so I'm trying to get it as soon as possible. So yeah. This is just an introduction if you're kind of skipping the video. You can read it there. You can pause. Again, if you are following along, you can pause and read anything, though that might take even longer. Also, I have the channel and I will post the video link if you are reading this, but you don't. I don't know how you would read this without seeing the channel, but maybe it would happen one day. I don't know. So let's get started. I'm excited. Also, I usually put random music on. Like, I would prefer to put Higurashi music on, but I literally don't have like enough songs. So I might just put a Higurashi mix over it. So don't be surprised if there's songs I haven't heard before, but I mean, I'll try not to like listen to them. Like, I'll just put it in post editing, so you shouldn't notice. So I'll just put like, so you might hear songs that haven't been heard or I'm not supposed to hear. So yeah, don't worry. I mean, it shouldn't hurt that much, but just saying. So first we have the multi-arc theories, which are, again, theories that kind of work on all of the arcs. These are sort of big theories, but they're probably one of the most vague sets of theories. That'd be like the last theory. Oh, well, hospital theory is a classic, but the other one. But let's start from the beginning. So, you have the Artser book. This should be pretty self-explanatory, at least the basis. I'll probably read what I wrote, which is always a little bad, because once you read it out loud, you notice how the grammar is. But we'll read it, then I'll give my spoken take on it. So at the end of Hima Tsubushi, it is revealed that Oishi and Akasaka wrote a book to compile information they gathered in hopes to solve the crimes, which was named Higurashi. This could be pointing to the fact that the arts are in fact different books. I really like that, since for me personally, I haven't thought of a good way to explain how the arts are happening without any supernatural elements. But with the new information, using the world as a book fits nicely. This would answer why we are getting a repeating story and setting, since it's impossible for that to happen in the real world without some major cover-up thing going on. But a new question arises: what is the truth and what is fiction? Since I'm sure they had to fill in the blanks a lot, and probably had to add some style to make the book more interesting to read. This could also be an answer to the supernatural element, since again the book is not the real world, so the authors could have just wrote it, since Hinamizawa is a superstitious place and they don't have the real answers, so they take what they don't know and present it as supernatural. So there's a bit in this. First off, I do enjoy how this would help explain how this world is happening. Just like I said, if you think about this again without any knowledge of Umineko, how would you explain why we're getting this repeated timeline again and again? I do like the idea that it's linear, but to actually do that idea, you would need a huge cover up, a lot of preparations. So it's a kind of a messy theory, but the idea of books being this fiction stuff, it makes sense how you can have this repeating times if it's like different books trying to explain, or books based on Hinamizawa. So I kind of like that. Obviously the evidence is that they name dropped that Oishi and Akasaka wrote a book for this, so it's pretty strong, I would say. Well, probably one of the most solid pieces of evidence. Then I talked about how it could also explain some of the supernatural stuff, because again, this is a book where the authors are trying to also figure out what's happening, so they're just putting in what they think. And I think I might explain it later, but I also like the idea that some of the stuff that they can't explain, they just make it sort of supernatural. Because again, this is a book, if they do want to sell it. Non-fiction does sell, but spicing it up wouldn't hurt it at all. So yeah, maybe all the supernatural stuff are just some events that Oishi and Akasaka just can't think of. Also, it's important to know, I probably should have put this in the introduction, but these are all just different theories. They don't necessarily have to complement each other. I'm sort of doing it the Battler way in Umineko, where I'm just throwing a bunch of theories out, and hopefully one or a couple will at least graze the target. So even though I'm going kind of hard in this, the theories are a book thing, I don't think it needs to be, and some of the theories kind of contradict that, so just saying. But yeah, let's go to the next paragraph. While the fact that the reveal feels really important, there's a chance that the setting isn't as linear as this. So I know that's confusing, but it means that even though they revealed that they wrote a book together, it doesn't mean that that's the complete answer, while the answer can still be that at least one of the arts are a book. It was stated that they wrote a book, not a series, which wouldn't match up with the multiple arts. And I don't think I mentioned this in the thing, but it could actually just be one big book and the arts are like all in one book. That is totally a possibility that I kind of forgot, but I just thought of right before recording this. Now, there are a couple of answers I can think of for this. One would be that none of the arts are actually the book, but they are facts collected from the story and placed into each of the arts, meaning that the parts of the real book are separated within the arts. Another answer would be that Onotakashi or any of the other two could be written by the pair, while the other two are written by a different author/authors with different information they can add. Maybe Takano could have written an arc, since her death is the most fishy, probably to Higurashi, taking her knowledge and adding it with the pairs to create her own story. On the other hand, it could also be done by somebody not related to the village itself, but it feels better to theorize with named characters. This answer would go in line with the pair's objective of getting information by sharing information, or go to the more simple idea. Someone has read Akasaka and Oishi's book and created their own scenarios using the information gained, which can be to solve it or just for fun. It doesn't really matter. That's a mouthful. So basically my idea is that maybe one of the arts could be a book, then the rest, like let's say Onotakashi is the main one Oishi wrote. Maybe somebody else, again maybe Takano, since we'll talk about Takano's death, but I'm pretty sure I've mentioned it multiple times. She could have like took the information from Oishi's book, added her own information and created Totoroshi. I kind of like that. It could be some random person who took the Higurashi book written by the pair and created their own stories based on the information. Maybe they're creating their own stories to not their own stories, but their own answers, and trying to find their truth their own way, sort of thing. It's a little convoluted, but I think the basis of the arc and the world of Higurashi being a book is like fairly strong and good. This is a little convoluted, but I think that's fine. I don't actually know how much I reference the book theory. I don't think I do. But since I do write this, I haven't reorganized it. I read it from straight up to down. But yeah, I mean, there's not too much to say about the book theory. We got the book name drop, which is important. We got and I think it's a reasonable possibility that it is a book. Next, we have the scripting theory. You should be, if you've watched the playthrough, you should be familiar with it. It's a theory I quite like, so let's go over it. The scripting theory was created during Totoroshi by me, mainly being the idea that the characters in the arts are following a script. This goes with events in Totoroshi where multiple characters were stating that Keiichi was with them during the festival, even though we know that he was busy killing the uncle. Instead of everybody at the festival lying, I like the idea that characters really do believe that Keiichi was there without there being a doppelganger. I use this as a catalyst to explain why/what spooky mode is when a character's personality takes a huge turn and they get dead eyes. Basically, Keiichi does an act-in that breaks the script of the game, like when he killed the uncle, and the other characters go into spooky mode in response. While this does sound kind of wild, with the introduction of the idea that the arts are books really helps this theory stand up. Also, throughout both Totoroshi and Himatsubushi, I feel like there are a lot of references, especially in the curtain call, leading to it. So yeah, I've talked about this before. The idea that the characters are sort of following a script. It's kind of hard to explain it without sounding very weird, but let's say like the script wrote that the 5 club members were all going to race today, and but instead Keiichi ditches the race and so the other characters will still race and they will still think Keiichi is there because he's supposed to be there, not just because they like made a promise or whatever, because he's literally supposed to be there according to their reality. It's a very meta thing, but like I said, I do think that the book theory really supports it, because it's like it's scripting in a book. If the characters are following the text in a book, then like Keiichi like breaking his character in a book and causing everyone to freak out really sounds good to me. I don't know, I like it. It's a big meta theory, but it feels good to me. And if something feels good to my gut, then it's something I like as a theory. That's basically what a lot of my theories are going off of. If it feels good to me, then it's good enough, because it's not like we have too much to work off of, right? Moving on. Obviously, going with the theory, the question would be, how is this happening? Going with the book theory, I like the idea of somebody using the book to solve the mystery and breaking the script via brainstorming. We talked about this. Maybe the arts are a byproduct of a person using the main book, writing their own stories to solve it. Though with the current information available, I don't think it's possible to have a really solid theory. You know, just putting that in there just in case. Just again to state that speculation. It's speculation, alright? I admit it. It's fine. But yeah, I like that idea of someone going through the book and making their own story, trying to solve it. Sounds cool, but again, it's just its own thing. All right. Also, I do think highlighted Aiden. Also, I do think that it is possible using the scripting theory without the book theory. One variant, I really like the idea of the arts are happening after the disaster. There is some sort of experiment by an outsider group. The only human theory for that scripting theories will always be pretty grand in scale, since pulling something off like that would be a major project, but despite that, it's kind of my favorite theory for explaining why spooky mode happens. So this is making a statement that without the book theory, it does work, though it really works well with the book theory. Like my initial theory is that I still kind of like, it's the idea that it's linear, so the arts are actually happening one after the other, but obviously the problem is people are dying, they're happening, why are they thinking it's the same thing? And I don't have the answers for that. Again, I don't think there is any good answers for why that would be happening. There is some theories that support the idea, but it's hard to explain. But I do like the idea that scripting can exist on its own without the book theory, and I do like it as a way of explaining spooky mode, which is the dead-eyed mode, because I think that's a very hard thing to explain, it being like something man-made and natural stuff without going into like brainwashing and stuff, because like it's not like you can turn your eyes dead like on command. I don't know, maybe you can. I haven't really seen it. I think the nature of the idea of scripting is pretty out there, making it hard to make super logical theories about it, but despite that, I think the idea itself feels very reliable, with lots of clues in the last arc pointing to the idea, so if something like the scripting theory does turn out to be correct, I wouldn't be too surprised. Also, I did state that, in both Higurashi and Himasubushi, it really feels like the author's pushing you to look at the bigger picture, to look at the meta picture, especially in the curtain calls. Because in the curtain calls before, they used to like discuss the crimes and stuff, but this time they're like, I don't know, this is really weird. Does it make sense? Maybe we should look at it in a different perspective. So I feel like there is a lot of push by the author to look at it more meta-y. So yeah, it's a pretty safe statement. I know it's a pretty easy statement to say. Yeah, I think that's pretty good theory. I wouldn't be surprised if it was real. But I honestly feel that way. I feel like scripting is really strong. I think it might even be stronger than the book theory, surprisingly, despite it having a little less credibility. And yeah, I like scripting. It'll be probably one of my favorites for a while now. I think it was my favorite in the Totoro batch. So yeah, go scripting, go. Next off, we have a pretty spicy theory. As soon as I start the recording, a train comes. It's okay, I welcome the train. Probably the spiciest theory of this multiple art theories, which is saying a lot. It's scripting, and scripting it especially is kind of out there, but I like this idea. If you've seen it, in my Himitsubushi playthrough, I was really looking for, in the future parts with Oishi, looking for some reference of Keiichi, because it got me thinking about, like, what is the role of Keiichi's character? What is his purpose? And I came up with the idea that, kind of posing a question, like, what if Keiichi actually isn't a real character? So let's go with the paragraph first, and then, like, if it doesn't explain it, I'll try to explain it better. The theory came up at the start of Himitsubushi and got a nice push from the book theory. Basically, the theory questions if Keiichi is an actual person that lived in Hinamizawa during the incidents. I was really looking for one mention of Keiichi or his family in Himitsubushi, and since there wasn't, this theory is alive and spicy. Boop. In video edits, true dedication. This theory alive. What? No, that's not a good edit, Doodle. What are you thinking? I think the idea that Keiichi's family are new residents also points to the idea that they're placed in the story unnaturally. Looking at this idea with the book theory, it becomes much easier to imagine this being right. I've stated before that the books might have added the supernatural elements to fill in for the missing information of the crimes. I think Keiichi can fit into the same category. Keiichi could have been put in as an outsider perspective to analyze the information the authors gathered, perhaps making him friends / interacting with the most suspicious people. I also like the idea that he's put there in an outsider's perspective, since in the first art it really highlighted that fact. It also goes well with some scenes I consider weird, like in Higurashi, where Irie was surprised about Keiichi's house, then commented, "I guess Keiichi Maibra would live in the Maibra house." This line of thinking also explains why Keiichi keeps breaking the script, since he wasn't supposed to be in the story in the first place. So I like this theory. I think it's good. I think it was good enough to, like, not write a Keiichi section in character theories, which might be a mistake. But I like the idea. Basically, if you didn't understand through this kind of messy paragraph, like, whether it's from the pair or some other author or whatever's happening in this world, what if Keiichi wasn't actually a person living in Hinamizawa, but he's actually a representation, a link used either to explain stuff or placed as an outsider who can kind of observe Hinamizawa in a more natural light, or I guess, like, since Hinamizawa is so tight-lipped, the outsider perspective kind of gives it a more neutral vision. I talked about how the first arc really highlighted this outsider idea. Same with Totoro. Honestly, I probably should put that into that line. I guess Keiichi Maibra would live in the Maibra house it still bugs me to this day. I hate that line, and I don't know what Irie means by it. Like, why was he surprised Keiichi lived in this house? This is a new house. I mean, like, is someone else supposed to live in that house? Like, what does this mean? I have no idea. So like, I think it works well with this. Also, yeah, Keiichi keeps breaking the script because his purpose in the story is actually to break the script, because he didn't actually live there. And I go really hard in this theory, and I do want to say that the idea of Keiichi just living there normally is also there, and it shows in like every like character theory afterwards. But it's like it's such a spiced theory that I kind of love it. Alternatively, going with the idea that this took place after the disaster in the real world, Keiichi would serve a similar role. If this was an experiment of some sort, the idea of Keiichi being an outsider to see how it affects the village fits well with the statements I've made. Obviously, it sounds kind of absurd, but the idea of future experiments are kind of wacky anyways. So this is just, again, putting in the perspective that if it isn't part of the book, and we are going with some sort of weird future experiment where people are living in Hinamizawa after the disaster, or like government and outsider group stuff, it kind of works in the same way. Like, what if they're observing the people of Hinamizawa, or observing something in Hinamizawa, testing their psyche and personalities and stuff? Like, Keiichi is the outsider. He's like sort of the new fish in the tank, and see how the environment reacts to Keiichi. So now we go into some subcategories. So this one, like it introduced theory. It also like talked about the outsider, him being the outsider perspective. This one kind of goes into a different route of Keiichi being a representation. Let me take a quick water sip. My voice is already cracking a bit. And we're on page 4 of 26. It says 27, but the 27th page is empty. Maybe I should have put a thank you for reading thing. I'll do that if I remember. So this is all one paragraph, so I'll do this. Don't look. It's spoilers. Another line of reasoning I like with a fictional Keiichi would be that instead of Keiichi being a completely new character, maybe he's acting as a stand-in / substitute. Like a scene or incident would happen, but the writers don't know who caused / was involved with it, so Keiichi was created to fill in the blank without having to remove the event. A good way to support this theory is that, in my opinion, I can see Higurashi and Totoro working as a story without Keiichi's character. Which I do change this opinion a little bit, especially the Watanabe part. But I mean, no, I don't know. I can see it. Obviously, some of the character motivations and actions would have to be changed, but I can see the core story playing out. Also, there's the possibility of the story being the same, but every major scene with Keiichi is just a substitution for another character. Sorry. It's kind of hard to think of specifics since you have to change the way you think about the story, but I can see Rena or Mian subs into Todoroshi since they're pretty underused in the latter half. Honor Takashi kind of puts a dent in the theory since Keiichi is a major focus in that arc, and it's hard to imagine the story without him. That being said, maybe Xian might be a good substitute since she exists in the world and wasn't introduced in the arc. So this is again a little confusing, like a lot of the meta stuff is in these theories, but the idea is that Keiichi is like a stand-in, a substitute for something. So let's say an event happens. Instead of like explaining it, because they don't know, they put Keiichi in as a way to explain it. Or an actual, there's an event, but they don't know like who's taking part of it, or they want to put Keiichi in for some reason, but Keiichi's there instead of one character's. So like, I'm trying to think of a good example, but it's pretty hard to think of one. I know I had one when I wrote this, but yeah, like Xian being used in Honor Takashi, because since she seems like a major character, it wouldn't be a surprise that she was in it. We'll go into I'm trying not to say Satoshi, but like, yeah, Satoshi for sure. We'll go into that in the next paragraph. But yeah, like imagining scenes without Keiichi. So like the whole festival thing. This maybe Keiichi was like a lot of like I say Watanabe and Higurashi can actually work without Keiichi's character. And I still kind of think so. But it would work in its like scripted way. So like to Higurashi, no one would kill the uncle. Satoko might die from being boiled alive. Stuff like that might happen. Watanabe, again, a lot of focus is put on Mion and Keiichi's relationship. But if Mion's like at her wit's end anyways, I don't hate the idea of her freaking out and killing people. But we'll talk about that. I'm hyping myself up for that. But it's kind of that idea of Keiichi being a stand-in. I like it. It's hard to see, but like... And I think it'll be really interesting in the next arc. I'm sure Keiichi will be in it, because it'll be kind of silly if he doesn't. That would, I doubt they would like confirm my Keiichi isn't real theory already. Like I'm waiting for the end. if this is real, I'm waiting for the end. Or I don't think I mentioned this, but this could also work in the non-book way. Like what if it goes with the transfer thing. There we go. This is why you watch the video version. You get spicy new theories without that's not in the text. What if it is like an experiment by the outsider group and Keiichi is a stand-in for Satoshi? Just Satoshi got transferred away because he wasn't fulfilling his duty, or he wasn't fulfilling his duty, he wasn't playing the role right, so they switched out Satoshi for Keiichi, who does the same role. That's spicy. I like that. Again, as per usual, speculation, but it's good. Let's go into Satoshi's bit. I love how, like, just a side note, how small these look compared to, like, once we get in, when I start using like side headings, the freaking Mion. Actually, no, I don't know what I'm saying. Sorry, I'm almost procrastinating during the video. How amazing is that? But yeah, Keiichi as a representation of Satoshi. My bracket game is pretty strong. This takes the same idea from the above theory, but I feel it's good enough to give it its own space, and I feel much more comfortable with this specific point rather than using it in a bigger scope. Also, this means that this can mix with the general theory, with Keiichi being in Satoshi in some scenes and the other people in others in the same arc. Basically, this theory uses the idea that Keiichi is a representation of Satoshi, or just Satoshi himself. The idea stems from the fact that while Satoshi does seem to be an important character, the only real facts given about him are that he and Keiichi acted similar in both Onotakashi and Higurashi. The fact that multiple characters claim that Keiichi mimicked Satoshi's actions almost perfectly really brings the representation theory to life. The idea gets a little wavy since a lot of the problems Keiichi faces seems to stem from the fact that he's an outsider, which Satoshi is not, but maybe that is also a hint that Keiichi being an outsider is not the actual cause of the spooky stuff happening. Also, I think it's important to use information we know about Keiichi and apply it to Satoshi, like maybe Satoshi was living away from Hinamizawa and moved back, so he is an outsider. While I do like the basis of the theory, I think by itself, knowing that Keiichi and Satoshi are interchangeable doesn't actually help solve the story by itself. Which, let's on screen edit that. I think you need to use this idea and see how it changes other events. So basically from this, I basically came up with the representation and almost the whole thing, though mainly the representation part, because of how Satoshi and Keiichi acted as a way to explain it. And I stated before, this could mix with this, where Satoshi is Keiichi, or Keiichi is Satoshi in some scenes, and in some scenes it's not. I don't see a problem with mixing and matching. And again, Satoshi seems to be an important character. She's mentioned in two arcs, but pretty importantly. But the only real facts that we know, except that he's Satoko's brother and he was a good brother, kind of, is that he and Keiichi are similar. So if that's the only point they're telling us while saying that Satoshi is an important character, then I just have to think that you have to connect the dots for that. And I think it's also another good point I made is that since they are representations of it themselves, maybe you should do some reverse thinking and say, okay, since we know that Keiichi did all that stuff because Satoshi did all that stuff, so they're similar, maybe there's similar stuff that we know about Keiichi that also applies to Satoshi, since again Satoshi, we don't have too much about Satoshi, but maybe we can get some more information from what Keiichi knows. So yeah, a good idea is maybe Satoshi did live away and move back. I think I go over it eventually. Oh no, I had a good example. We kind of go over it in the next one. But yeah, how about we take what we know about Keiichi and put it on Satoshi too. Obviously, if they are different characters, or even if they're like different people via not book theory, then they won't have the exact same emotions and stuff, but similarities. Let's see what I wrote. In Satoshi / Keiichi spicy theories, extra hot. Just some ideas of what Keiichi and Satoshi being the same actually changes in the story. Oh yeah, I mentioned before, even if you know this information, which I actually do bring up this interchangeable stuff a lot, or not a lot, but again, it doesn't actually help you solve the story. Like, what does it do? It's like, oh, Keiichi was Satoshi. That's cool. It doesn't actually change anything in the story right now. Maybe some motivations for some characters. But that itself, until we actually learn more about Satoshi or more about Keiichi and we can connect the dots a little harder, it doesn't actually affect theory making at this point, in my opinion. So these are some things that would actually affect the story using the speculative angle of them being similar. Oh, this one's it's pretty good. It is shown that Mion probably has some romantic interest in Keiichi, while Shion has some with Satoshi. This could be a possibility on why the sisters dislike each other so much. This could mean that maybe their love rivalry caused Higurashi, and also maybe it was Mion on the phone, and not Shion and Higurashi, and it was just another idea of Keiichi being interchangeable with Satoshi. So this is basically saying that, well, Mion probably likes Keiichi in a romantic way, and Shion likes Satoshi in a romantic way. If we replace Keiichi and Satoshi easily, then maybe they like the same boy, like they both like Keiichi and they both like Satoshi, and that's why they dislike each other. So it's some weird love, well, not weird. It's just a fierce sister love triangle, which sounds good. I like it. It's probably one of the better theories I came up with from what we have. Also, there was the scene in Higurashi where it seemed like Shion was pretending to be Mion because she thought it was Keiichi, or she thought it was Satoshi on the phone, not Keiichi. But with this, it literally could be Mion. What if they just both liked Satoshi and it didn't have to be an unnecessary switcheroo? So I like that one. It's spice. I think another idea that comes out of this is that maybe Satoshi got pushed off the bridge by Satoko. Maybe after she found out he was a murderer, making her character even more depressing. This obviously refers to Keiichi getting yeeted off of the bridge. If we again connect the dots and switch them, maybe Satoko actually yeeted Satoshi off the bridge because she thought he was possessed, because maybe she found out that he killed the aunt or something. Or maybe she found out he killed the parents, I don't know. Which just makes her character even more depressing, but yeah, I think that's a pretty good one too. It was in the chase scene in Onokatashi, one of my favorite scenes, that Rena might have been involved with Satoshi's disappearance. Like her saying that she wants to talk and save him sounds like she either wants to kill him or she knew what happened to him and wanted to prevent it to happening to Keiichi. So it's a little meta. Like, I mean, not really. I didn't really talk about it, but if Keiichi is a representation, like, do the characters actually know he's a representation? It's interesting, but it's also the idea that we're using the Keiichi Satoshi switcheroo to actually theorize about other characters like Rena. So like during Rena's chasing Keiichi with the knife, like her saying that she wants to save him and stuff like that, could be that she wants to kill him. Like the idea of saving him through killing him so he doesn't go through the same fate as Satoshi, or like preventing it. We go into this much more during the Rena character theories, so we'll talk about that in more detail, I think. If not, then feel free to say, Aiden, you didn't talk about that more. Then I'll be like, oh yeah, okay, this is what I think. I kind of had this theory in a previous arc, but the fact that Keiichi interacts with Oishi a lot, wait, oh no, embarrassing, a lot. I mean, it works, put a comma. So possibly Satoshi was also heavily connected with Oishi. Though Keiichi's relationship with him changes depending on the arc, maybe this is a representation of Oishi's relationship with Satoshi, worsening as it went on. I also think that Satoshi might have made a deal with Oishi where he could kill the aunt and Oishi would cover it up. I like this theory. It's especially the first half. I think it's very tight. So basically, I'm using the full thing with the interactions. So if Keiichi replaced Satoshi in each part, then I'm saying this shows that maybe Satoshi interacted with Oishi, which I think is a very, very good claim. I mentioned it in multiple times throughout the sheet. I think it's might be the stronger ones of the switcheroos. And the more like speculative part is that like in each art, this was brought to me by a viewer. Oh no, what did I do? Brought to me by a viewer, by the way, his opinion, and I really liked it, so I just yoinked it. So thank you. I believe it was Val Hunter for this. But like each arc, like Keiichi's relationship with Oishi is different. Like in the first one he's an ally, in the second one he's kind of neutral, in the third one he's an enemy, and it shows like how good and bad his relationship is. I kind of like the idea that it's showing the progress of Satoshi's relationship with Oishi. Like they're allies, then they're neutral, then they're enemies. Which I don't. So like basically it's like he's helping Oishi, but then Oishi like sort of throws him away at the end, or maybe even tries to deal with him. And I do make the claim that Oishi could be the one who like I do just want to believe that Satoshi did kill the aunt, not some random drug addict. And if someone could frame the drug addict for it, Uishi would be a great candidate. We talked about this a bit more, but I like that theory. And yeah, that was the Keiichi isn't real theories. I like it. I think it's spicy. It's definitely something new. This is the first time I'm talking about it, so yeah, I think it's decent takes. Next, we'll be going to our last theory of this thing. The classic, the all-time classic, the hospital theory, first created by me in Watanashi. And when I say be created by me, I don't mean that no one else has done it, but when I first created this, I loved it when it came out in Watanashi. I mean, it still got support in Totoroshi, but I'm not like amazingly hot about it like I was before, but I still think it's pretty good. It's just that I've talked about it so much, I kind of kept it short and simple. So we'll read it and I'll see if I like missed anything. If you've seen my past theories, then you probably know about the hospital theory. The idea is that the outsider group resides in Hinamizawa Clinic, with Irie being the big bad. This was created in Watanashi, where I noticed that in both arts Keiichi at some point visited a clinic and got medicine or a shot. Excuse me. And by the end of the arc, he was at the hospital. While there is no direct evidence reviewed in Totoroshi, the same pattern does happen. Some evidence would be that the clinic has both Irie and Takano, two of the most suspicious people. The mysterious drug that has a big plot in Onitakashi. If someone did create the drug, it would make sense for the medical people to do it. The fact that a person in a doctor's coat came to collect Keiichi at the end of Onitakashi, which might have been a red flag, but at the same time, following this theory, he would really be a doctor. What Higurashi did kind of call out this theory by joking about it, about some suspicions on Irie. I still feel it's the best theory if you like the idea of an outsider group. So that's very brief, but it is the idea that if there is an outsider group manipulating Hinamizawa, maybe the core of it's not at the hospital like I originally thought, but like hospital members are it. Like, and then if it's like some medical things, it would happen at the clinic, right? And I do like the evidence I gave. You know, if there is a drug, the clinic would be the natural place to think about it. Keiichi does go into the clinic in all arts. First art he went pretending he got a cold, but he did actually get shots. Second arc he went to the clinic before going to the hospital or after the torture thing. He might have went before then, but he definitely went into the clinic again. To Totoroshi, in Watanashi, he definitely went to the clinic after he got stabbed. I remember that because I like watched that scene like a bunch of times for this theory sheet. To Totoroshi, he definitely goes to the clinic for Irie, so there's a bunch of times he goes to the clinic. Yeah, even like when he was passed out, I don't hate the idea that he went to the clinic. He went to a hospital too. Like, it's just, it's there. It's vague. It's there. And then Irie, and especially Takano, I've like leveled. She was already suspicious, but like, she's just so easy to say, to point fingers at. And then there's a time in Onitakashi where someone in a lab coat or a doctor's coat came, and then like the initial response without this theory is, okay, so they called someone who's apparently the quote-unquote doctor. He's probably just some lie to capture Keiichi, but like what if he's legitimately a doctor from the clinic? And then to Totoroshi, they do kind of, Irie's like, they do kind of put a lot of suspicion on Irie by like even calling him the manager in the proper Japanese, not the translations. He jokes about him putting a syringe to make people mind controlled stuff. It's a lot of mocking, but at the same time, I don't think that breaks the theory at all. You can mock about it all you want, but that's just a weak deflection, in my opinion. It's not like they brought any evidence to contradict the point. So I think I'm fine with it. Um, but yeah, hospital theory. I've talked about it before. You can look back in other videos. Hopefully this won't be the last, because I still think it's a pretty good theory. Next, we're moving on to character theories, which are just multi-out theories based on characters, kind of at the same time, like sometimes not. I don't know. These honestly, like I just made the titles to make it look good, organize it a bit. I got to do some fun titles, some snappy ones. So we're done talking about some character theories. First, we're going with Rena theories. Hawoo! Well, I still think out of the main cast, Rena needs the most development, and I have a lot of questions about her, and I still have a couple theories worth mentioning. So I do think, again, in terms of background information, besides we know the incident that happened with her, we don't have a lot of information about Rena. So she's definitely the one I'm looking forward to the most learning about more. Since I at least kind of have a grasp on the other three club members. But yeah, Rena's sort of an enigma right now. So we'll talk about some Rena stuff, and we talk about Rena a lot more later. Again, I'm hyping up my big theory just because I love it so much. But yeah, we'll talk about Rena a bit more. But we still have a lot. I think maybe she might actually be the biggest one we talked about, surprisingly. But yeah, first theory is Cute Treasure Island. A prominent part of Rena's story in Onotakashi, which is Rena's biggest arc, is the garbage dump, where she hunts for various cute things like Colonel Randy, the all-time classic statue. Since there aren't a lot of hints that I can see, for Rena, I would like to think that this should be something worth thinking about. And I think someone asked me about this in the Onotakashi reading. I think like 2 or 3 people actually asked, what do you think about the garbage dump, Aiden? Is it really a garbage dump, Aiden? Do you have any opinions about the garbage dump? I don't know. Maybe, I guess. It's not like they hinted to... I mean, let me finish this paragraph before going off on it. The key points that I know about the site is that most of the junk there is from the canceled dam project, though other stuff has been dumped throughout the years. Obviously, I'm sure they didn't just have a Colonel Randy in their office, though it would probably look beautiful. And Rena frequents it. If I had to guess, I would say that this might be an important spot for the perpetrator of the first murder, and if it's the same culprit of the other murders. Perhaps to spot / hide evidence / corpses. The most obvious thing would be the missing limb from the first murder, which would already be decomposed by now, by the way, except for the bones. I think there are multiple reasons why Rena would frequent this place. First would be that she actually does enjoy finding cute junk, but maybe she also discovered some evidence of the crimes, and that's another thing she considers a treasure, oddly. Alternatively, maybe the mastermind has tasked her with keeping watch over it to keep out anybody snooping, or she discovered the evidence herself and she wants to protect the culprit, or the culprit found about her discovery and forcing her to keep watch. Either way, I don't think there's enough information to pick a specific answer for now. So basically I'm saying that while we don't have too much about Rena, one of her key traits is that she likes treasure hunting in this garbage dump. So we should think about the garbage dump. And again, people have asked me about this, but like, I don't know. It's not like any of the other arts really went into this garbage dump, so it's like, again, just speculations. um, like, what do we know? We know that it was a damn dump site, and that Rena likes to frequent it. So I give a couple of answers to why Rena would frequent it if she was kind of evil. Like, I kind of like the first one, that maybe she does find evidence of the crime, or like some evidence of the culprit, and she knows who it is, and she finds it cute because, you know, one of the cool parts of Rena is that she finds very weird things cute. So I wouldn't be surprised if she's just digging. You know, she has her Colonel Randy. She has I don't know, some weird garden gnome thing, and she finds like something belonging to the culprit, and she finds it cute. So maybe that's like the treasures she finds, or it could be like the body or something. Maybe those are considered treasures too, and she's just finding different bodies there from experiments or whatever. Experiments or from the murders. That would be fine too. Maybe she's being ordered to guard that. Maybe she's being blackmailed, or she's blackmailing someone. I don't know. There's a lot of answers. I can't really pick one since there's nothing too strong yet. It's good to know that Tomotaki was seen taking pictures around the dump, and it was mentioned in a rant by Rena into Higurashi when she was angry. Yeah, I'll talk about Tomotaki later, and there was like the part where she popped off into Higurashi at Keiichi, mentioning that everything's going to be fine, now I can go look in my garbage dump for treasure or whatever. It was a great rant, by the way. I'm not discrediting it at all, but it doesn't really help with finding out about cute Treasure Island. But that's my thoughts on it, so I'm sure there will be answers for it. I'm sure that it does have more significance than I can see. Maybe I'm just missing it right now. I mean, let's be honest, would you really be surprised if I missed it? But yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Then we have self-aware Rena. Well, Rena was introduced as an airhead and ditzy. That sounded airheaded. Oh, I was reading it wrong. It sounds fine. Well, Rena was introduced as airheaded and ditzy in Onotakashi. The other two arts paint a much different picture. She is shown to be much more self-aware in her character and others around her, giving advice to both Keiichi and Mion in Higurashi. While she does have personality changes in Onotakashi, it generally seems more erratic and at some points even unnatural. She does have her cute moments in other arts, but it leaves a weird feel in comparison to how she usually acts, making it feel more like an act to seem cute. There could be various reasons for this. It could be malicious, as she's trying to act cute to avoid suspicion, or she wants to be accepted by her peers and thinks she'll be more liked by acting that way. Either way, I do think this is the strongest theory on Rena, and I do think that her cuteness is sometimes an act, which she puts on a lot in Onotakashi. Big water gulps. So basically, if you didn't get it, I'm saying that in Onotakashi, she really is introduced as this really cute, this naive girl, and that's kind of what makes it so scary when she has these personality changes. But in Watanashi, she's much more sharp. She can read the situations pretty well. She actually has better ideas than Keiichi sometimes. Like, she's just an overall very more self-aware character. And even into Higurashi. So it makes me want to lean towards more that that's her true personality, not in the Onotakashi thing. So that by proxy, it makes me think that she was acting a lot in Onotakashi, which means maybe has done more stuff in Onotakashi than I suspect her of. It's a possibility. And then it's a pretty Oops, what am I doing? I'm backing. It's a pretty easy theory to make. So it's easy to be strong, but it is, I still think, a pretty solid theory. So let's go to trouble. I tried to roll my R's. I still don't know how. Troubled Rena. This one is pretty good too, if I remember. Another big piece of information revealed about Rena would be her childhood, which was given by Oishi. The information, not her childhood. And the incident at her school. It was told that Rena was originally from Hinamizawa, but moved for some reason. I think it was her parents' job. Also good to know, because I didn't put this, that she lied to Keiichi, that she was completely new, and not just like temporarily moved away. Then at school, she vandalized the school by breaking some windows and violently beat one of her friends with a metal bat, which might have died or not, I don't remember. I'm pretty sure it was a guy that was just badly injured. After she was getting treatment at therapy, Oishi claims he overheard Rena saying that Oyasho-sama forced her to do it, and it's like punishment for leaving Hinamizawa. It's interesting that she used a metal bat like Satoshi and Keiichi, but I doubt it's related. Unless it's a hint that Satoshi's actions were a mimic of Rena's in some weird chain, with people assaulting others with metal bats. But unlike Satoshi and Keiichi, Rena did not kill someone and she did not die, such disappear in the end. So I do say I doubt the metal bat theory, but I literally talked about it again in Oishi's part, so don't believe what I write. But yeah, this is saying this is just going into the idea that about and probably the biggest piece of information is Rena's assault on someone and claiming that Yashiro was forcing her to do it. First off, it's by Oishi, who you really can't trust fully, and it is extremely suspicious that he was literally just eavesdropping and heard her say that. But yeah, and it is important to link the metal back stuff with the three of them and try to see a connection through that, which again we do go through over, but it is weird if it is just a coincidence. Mental illness / stress has been a common point in my theory making since Rena, Satoko, and Mion all had some problems in the past and also show signs of different mental problems. Well, again, Rena doesn't have a clear backstory. From what I gathered, the assault of the friend seemed like an important piece of information. If you heard that, excuse me. First burp. The burps are back. It's a curse of making videos, as per usual. Important piece of information. Maybe using that as the core problem, we just speculate that she values her friends, maybe male friends, since it was a guy, very highly, to the point that she would even hurt them to stay. I don't remember the exact information about Rena's friend. I probably should have looked it up, but I didn't because I'm lazy. But if it's out of jealousy or fear of their friendship drifting apart, then maybe she beat him to physically make him unable to leave her. This would make sense with Keiichi since she noticed that he was acting like Satoshi, which means that he would eventually disappear, so she thought it would be better to kill / injure him than losing him. Then lose him. Anyways, I think this is pretty good. This is speculating on why Rena was acting a little crazy. Again, pointing to the mental illness / mental stress, damage, whatever. I do talk about it later, but literally all of the club members have a pretty rough childhood which might lead to this sort of problem. Um, and it was stated in the flashback that it didn't seem like she had any problem with her friends. So it was almost a random act of violence. And I do like the idea that she doesn't want to lose her friends. I don't know the reason, jealousy, fear of their friendship drifting apart, that's just speculation. But the idea of not losing her friends seems kind of important, since again Rena at this point, at least this point of writing this, I think she's a pretty friendly person. So if you go to the situation where Keiichi is acting a lot like Satoshi, and Rena knows that in the end Satoshi disappeared, instead of Keiichi disappearing, like if he permanently injures him or even kills him, then it's better to Rena of, like, I don't know, having his cute corpse, or again, if he can't walk, then he can't leave, sort of thing. So I like that. I think it's a pretty cute theory. But again, super speculative as per usual. Another common point in Rena's character is her apologizing, which is shown in multiple characters, but Rena's specifically. The big point would be when she was apologizing in the rain after she failed to get into Keiichi's house. This might be a core point to her personality. Perhaps she did something terrible in the past that was unforgivable. It was Keiichi's reaction that might have triggered that feeling again. If I had to guess, maybe it was the boy she beat and he wouldn't forgive her, or maybe she did something to Satoshi, like assault him, like Keiichi, or maybe she failed to save him when she had the chance. It could also be something before both of those incidents, which might be true to the reason she left the village. Again, speculating on her, on like that mental breakdown of why she just kept apologizing, staring at his house. I think it's, again, maybe this is a motivation for her. Maybe she has done something bad in the past that she just can't get forgiveness no matter how much she tries, and maybe Keiichi's hardcore rejection to her triggered that again. Like maybe at this point Rena was really trying to help him, but Keiichi was just losing his mind, so he didn't. And again, I speculated on what could have happened. Maybe it's because she beat the boy, and if he didn't die, which again I don't think he did, the boy never ended up forgiving her, so that might have started her. Or maybe because she didn't save Satoshi when she could, and now that she's seen Keiichi going through that, she feels bad again. Also, there's a possibility that none of these are the reasons, and again, I don't believe there's a clear reason why Rena left. I think it was because of work, but who knows, really. But maybe there is something else, and maybe that's why she actually beat the boy, because something triggered from a past memory before that. So very interesting stuff. Yeah, that's Rena. Rena's interesting. I do go into her a lot more in my super spicy arc, but for now that's enough of Rena. Next, we have our next club member, the almighty Satoko, haughty Satoko. Yeah, in terms of backstory, I think she's the one I feel the most comfortable at saying I understand. I think Neon can also fit that category. But yeah, we'll talk about Satoko. I only have like one thing for her, because I really don't think she has too much to think about. Like, out of all the club members, I think she's probably the least involved. But like I stated before, I don't hate the idea that she yeeted Satoshi off a bridge or something. It's kind of funny. But let's see, Satoko the killer, or maybe she is the killer. Who knows? let's see. Now I don't think Satoko is the mastermind, but despite her huge brain, because let's be honest, if she wanted to be the mastermind, she could be. She's the trap master. I mean, she can definitely do it, but she's just too nice of a person. But I do think there are some hints that she perhaps killed her parents. The obvious comparison is the fact that she pushed Keiichi off the bridge into Higurashi, and her parents both fell off someplace high with railings. Easy connection. If I were to assume that it wasn't an accident, the only confirmed people at the scene where the parents fell are the parents and the children. Also, the fact that the guardrail broke must mean there was some force pushing it, even if Satoko was super young then. Also, if she was the culprit, I think it would have been unintentional, since I doubt a little kid would be planning to murder her parents. Alternatively, it could have been a spur of the moment, since kids usually are pretty rash. Another hint would be the flashback where it shows Satoko's actions, that because of Satoko's actions, Rika was punished. This shows that Satoko is a naturally curious and ambitious kid, and I can see a world where she was trying to pull a prank on her parents and it goes wrong, and it leads to their death. It also shows that Satoko was scared of admitting her actions, which was shown when she let Rika get beaten rather than stopping it by admitting it was her, which means that she might be hiding the fact that she killed her parents out of fear of receiving punishment. With this mindset, it might be the reason why she takes the uncle's abuse, since she thinks she deserves it, along with the Satoshi abandoning her. This could be an alternative motivation. And maybe that's why she dropped Keiichi off the bridge with such determination, not wanting to hide her actions anymore. So I do like this theory. I think it's pretty good. I honestly thought, like, once Satoko was going to talk about her past to Keiichi at the climax, she was actually going to talk about this, but she talked about the Rika thing instead. But I think there are good points to it. The first point is kind of a meme, but I mean, it kind of made sense. Keiichi almost died by falling. The parents did get pushed off a bridge. The second point of the force breaking the rail it's not too big of a point, because if they just leaned back, maybe it broke, but it kind of reinforces the point that if Satoko did push them, the rail was frail enough to fall over, so it gives the ability for Satoko to actually push them off because of the frail rail. Like, if it was sturdy, she definitely couldn't have done it. Also, the idea that she probably wouldn't murder her parents. Now, it was stated that the parents weren't the nicest, but I doubt she would murder them. If anything, like, I believe it might have been a prank that went wrong. Maybe she was really angry and did do it, but again, it's a little kid. It happened. I mean, I'm not saying little kids kill parents, but I can see, like, Satoko getting angry and rebelling and accidentally killing them. We go to the Rika thing where it showed that because of Satoko's actions, Rika got punished, and while Satoko could have stopped the punishment, she was probably scared of being punished on her own, so she let Rika take it for her. This also then shows that Satoko's a pretty ambitious kid, so maybe it's like, there's just, again, all speculation. It's not like we got any flashbacks to really think about this too much, but there's definitely possibilities where I can see Satoko being involved, accident or not. And I think it's decent. Again, yeeted Keiichi off a bridge, probably yeeted Satoshi off a bridge too. It's maybe she's just cursed for letting people getting pushed off high places. Another spicy theory, but not really a viable theory, would be that Satoko killed her aunt with the help of Oishi, which I'll talk more about. This would further explain the guilt she feels if Satoshi disappears, since she would think that it directly reflects on her actions. Also, in relation to Keiichi as a substitute, maybe Keiichi killing the uncle is a parallel to how Satoko killed the ant with an elaborate trap. This also connects with the idea that Satoko does not like to take the blame since another person got blamed. So I don't really know what the point is with the Keiichi thing. It's more of just an example of I guess actually no, I get it now. I understand. So the idea of Satoko killing the ant is kind of laughable, since she would like literally be like a 6-year-old. But I mean, we've seen her deadly traps. She trips her up, starts beating her with a bat. It's possible. And again, it was the ant. She's definitely not as scary as the uncle. And this again would make her character even more sad, because Satoshi would disappear, and like the consensus is, at least the normal line of thinking is, that Satoshi left because he killed the ant, or something happened to him and Satoko feels bad about it. But she would probably feel even worse if she kills the ant and Satoshi for some reason disappears. So, if you want to make Satoko even sadder. Also, the trap thing was not in relation to Keiichi just killing the uncle. It was more in relation to how Keiichi planned to kill the uncle. So like, he did an elaborate trap of faking to be the police and getting him to the place, even though it kind of fell apart because he had to like run a lot. Kind of matches with how if Satoko was going to kill the ant, she would have to use a good trap. And it also connects with the statement we made where she does not like to receive the punishment, so instead of being punished for killing, the alcoholic guy got punished. Again, don't necessarily need Oishi, but he would be helpful. That's all I got for Satoko. I don't know. Is there any hot theories about Satoko that aren't memes? Actually, I do bring back the smelly Satoko theory. Which probably I should have put in the meme section, but it's actually in the tutorial Higurashi section. So that'll be funny. But yeah, there's Satoko. Short and sweet. Next, we have our other young member of the club, the big meeper, Rika. She might be tiny, but she gives the biggest meeps around town. Again, another singular thing called Supernatural Rika. Let's go over it, because I can guess what I'm gonna talk about, but let's see what I wrote. While you could argue about what events are supernatural or not, Rika's character is definitely the strongest case for magical elements in the story. Rika had a similar trait with Rena, where she was more self-aware than she appears, and the cute side is more of an act, but that state of awareness isn't limited to herself. It feels like she knows everything going on. In Arts 1, 2, 3, it gave me the impression that Rika could be involved with the plans going on. For example, her status as a great family will have gotten more information in the village meetings and gatherings. While I still think that is the case, still believe that could be the case. No, that is the case. Okay. I was just thinking if it was a could be or if it was an is the case. Well, I still think that is the case. Arc 4 definitely brought a lot more to this topic. It revealed that since a child, Rika has this awareness trait, even trivial information not discussed with the council, including events not predicted by others, like some weather events. It was also stated by Rika that she does not know why she knows some of these things, which makes it seem like she's being forcefully fed information. While you could argue that there are ways to explain this being a human action, like somebody was secretly telling her things without anybody noticing, or a group of people giving her information to raise her to be a proper vessel for Yashiro-sama. But it sounds almost unbelievable and more convoluted than the supernatural answer. The alternative answer would be that a non-human is giving Rika the information, presumably Oyashiro-sama. So this is, again, it's almost like self-aware Rena, where, unlike Rena, who took to like watching Higurashi to think about the self-aware, Rika always kind of had that aura about her, where she is cute, but at the same time, it's probably a bit of an act. But she didn't give off like this, the suspicionness of Rena. And basically, if you want to think about it logically, at least for like what's going on, like the watching Higurashi taught she had, the information about the crime she had, stuff about Satoshi and stuff, it made sense that she would know it. She is part of the great families. She does regularly, at least from what we've seen in Himatsubushi, she does attend the village meetings. She would probably be in loop of what's happening, and maybe even not for the Sonozaki stuff, but again, she's sharp, so she can probably pick a lot of that stuff up. But the thing that kind of pushes it over the edge is in Himatsubushi, once we see her even as a child who actually doesn't seem that sharp. She seems just genuinely like a cute little kid, has all this information, stuff about guessing the weather when it's wrong on TV and stuff like that, that you don't really think's being talked about in the meetings or stuff like that. I probably could have went in it a bit more, but yeah, there's more stuff like the mom thinking someone's around her all the time, the fact that she had the creepy voice, stuff like that just, it could be someone like teaching her this stuff while the mom's not looking. It could be something weird like that, but at that point it almost sounds better to just believe in the supernatural answer, which is that some non-human being is giving Rika information, probably Oyashiro-sama. Who knows, maybe it's something else. The question then would be, for what is the purpose of it? I think Rika's character feels similar to Keiichi in their potential role in the story. They both feel like observers of the story. Keiichi has the spotlight as the protagonist. You can't get a firm grasp of what's happening, while Rika's more on the sideline with more knowledge. But it's like she can't use it and she just watches how the events play out. I don't think Rika's involved with any of the crimes, but I think it's possible that she is the reason for the crimes or at the center of it. So this is interesting. I might not have conveyed it well, but like what I mean by similar characters, like Keiichi is a protagonist and he's trying to like solve the story as like an outsider, while Rika is an insider who has more knowledge than Keiichi, but it doesn't feel like she's actively like a bad guy in the story. Like she's kind of just an observer to, well, Keiichi's an observer acting, she's more like a stale observer. Slightly tapping Keiichi, but not too much. Also, I don't think she's a killer. Even unlike Satoko, I don't see Rika killing someone. If she had to kill someone, maybe her parents, but I really don't think so. I do think it's possible that she is a reason for why the crimes are happening. We do talk about Rika's death and Tottori Goroshi later, but like I don't hate the idea that someone, a fanatic, a Rika stan, is killing people for like some Oyashiro prophecy or something. Even though I don't mention it, I wouldn't be too surprised if that happens, if like Takano kills something. I mean, no spoilers. I do think Takano killed Rika, stuff like that. I can definitely see that happening. But yeah, that's what I think about Rika. Again, another short one. And we'll get into Mion next. though I think I am gonna take a break for the night. We didn't even hit the halfway point, but that's so fine. It literally won't matter for you, but it's like 1:30, and I don't want to be a ruckus, so see you in the morning, or for you the next second. Bye. Alright, we're back. It's another day. So if the sound quality is different, it's because it's the morning. Heads up, I mean, if you're watching this on release, it might be on Tuesday, because I just realized even after I finish recording, putting it through the editor and uploading it might take too long, then I have to go to work in the evening, so it might be Tuesday. At this point, it's like, let's see how late I can make this video come out, but let's just get right into it. We're continuing on with the character theories. Honestly, I might, I don't know. Okay, let's just go. So we're on Mion, the Oni. And I did put I won't be doing a Shion section, which I do explain in the Interchangeable Sisters thing, but I'll further expand on why I don't feel the need to after reading this. So let's see what I wrote. Interchangeable Sisters with the introduction of Shion in Watanagashi. The idea of the sisters switching places, making the reader more observant on noticing the differences. While not yet having a complete grasp on the characters, the fact that Mion loves the village while Shion does not brings some possible perspective on the motivation of the action taken. That being said, I don't think it's too important to scour through the arts to look for the hints, since the sisters are almost the same character. At this point, I don't think it will matter until more information other than their opinions on the village is revealed. If anything, Watanagashi is the only arc where you should really be looking at it, since it affects the time and place of where the characters are, which is important to solving the main questions of the arc. I feel that since the characters have the ability to perfectly copy each other, it's almost completely pointless to find these switches besides verifying alibis, since they can be the same character. So basically I'm saying, yes, we do know the main difference we know from Mion and Shion is that their like views on the village, where Shion doesn't seem to like it, Mion seems to love it. And obviously they do have their personality differences, but that's like the very big difference that separates them. So I guess if you do find like switches, you can guess the motivation more. But even then, the fact that, again, they're not completely the same, but the fact that they can act completely the same makes me feel like it's almost pointless in discovering the switches for a lot of reasons. Like I said, it is important in Watanagashi, since that's like the answer, or like the big clue to solving the big mystery of that series. But I don't think like going back to Onikakushi and looking for Mion/Shion switches will do much. Like you can say that oh, Shion switched with Mion for all the bad stuff, but like what does that actually affect in this story? It doesn't really answer anything. Same with Higurashi. So yeah, I just don't think it's too important to think about that, because it doesn't actually affect, it affects how you look at things, but it doesn't affect actually solving the story. Is my main point. But we do play around with the Shion and Mion switches. I think I even do mention them in other arts anyways. So, but that's just my take on it, which is against my like my normal take, or the common take I used to have, where it's like, oh, it's important to look for the switches, but I think, well, it can be important, it's not as important. I know the main way to differentiate the sisters is the tattoo of an Oni on Mion's back, but first off, since it hasn't been shown, I can't fully believe what others say, even if it is real, the successor gets tattooed, so I don't think it's a big indicator of who's who yet. Anyways, despite being a little giddy at finding the sister switcheroos originally, I don't think it's too important outside of Watanagashi. So this is addressing the tattoo, the fabled Oni tattoo on the successor's back, said to be on Mion's. First off, we haven't seen it, so I just can't believe it. I know someone was like, "But Aiden, it's in the anime opening." I'm like, okay, I don't think that matters. And second off, the wording for it was the tattoo is on the successor of the family's back. Obviously, everything is pointing to Mion being the successor, but I can see a weird world where it can be on Shion's back. I can see that maybe the Mion we know is actually not the real successor, and Shion is. I don't actually go into that too much, but it kind of, maybe that would have been a good Shion section. The world where like Mion's more of the figurehead of the village, where Shion's more of the an active lead in the Yakuza part, since again Mion lives with the village stuff, while the Yakuza family is the father's, so that's where Shion lives. So I can kind of see something like that, but so that's important to note. But yeah, that's what I think about the switcheroos. And then we go on Demon. Let's see what I wrote on this. In Watchinagashi, Mion becomes a demon and murders a bunch of people and maybe kills Keiichi at the end. While I don't think that a supernatural force took control of Mion out of the main cast, I can see Mion being a murderer, even over Rena. Like all of the other club members, Mion has a troubling past that probably led to some mental damages. This of course refers to the fact that she's the next head for the overseers of the village and part of a Yakuza family. While there hasn't been any evidence of abuse like the others, though I wouldn't be surprised if there was in future arcs, the fact that she was in an environment would definitely affect the person as they grow up. Himasabushi shows that at a young age she was being taught by the grandmother, and I know I had a conversation with someone where they asked me if a guardian would expose a young child to that, and I think Himasabushi shows that it's pretty likely in this case. So like, while I'm basically saying I don't think a demon took control of Mion, but I can see Mion being the most likely killer, at least when I'm writing this. But yeah, I had this conversation, and it's like, Aiden, do you think parents or grandparents would teach a young child how to murder? And it's like, definitely not. But I think in Mion's case, it's probably like the most likely family where she would be exposed to that, like literally Yakuza family and stuff like that. And it really did help my case, which I think it was like a good assumption anyways without Himasabushi. But the fact that we got Himasabushi, which was showing the mini Mion shadowing the grandmother, does kind of back up my claim that yeah, she probably was at least witnessing violent stuff at a young age, or like, help control, like the grandmother would whisper orders to Mion, so it also gives her sort of a charisma, or like a taste of controlling people or being important, I guess. This whole section might be a little janky because it kind of fights against my big theory, but I mean, not really. Let's see what else I wrote, because I don't exactly remember everything. As for the motivation for the murder in Watchinagashi, the most I got was the whole situation with Keiichi, but I like the idea that it was more of a trigger than a motivation. The rashness and how easily it was to figure out the culprit makes it seem like it was a crime of emotion, since the murders in the other arts don't have a strong base of who was the culprit. I also like the idea that Mion was the one that went off script, and that's why she got cornered and caught, assuming that she murdered the people out of emotion or in rebellion to the mastermind, and the people that she was running from at the end were trying to transfer her. So this is saying that, like, what we know about Mion, like what's the most likely case of why she murdered people, you kind of have to assume it's because of the Keiichi situation. But then I take the take that, well, if she's murdering it, is it really just because it, or is it more of her life's kind of spiraling and Keiichi's the last straw, so she's trying to change her life with the murders. There's also the idea, which I still kind of like, but I changed it a bit in the Watanabe section. But the idea that Mion actually went off script, like everyone in the other arts are following the mastermind, and that's why Watanabe is the only real art where it really points to a singular culprit, while the others are very, very hazy. Like you don't have a clear view of who can be the culprit, right? So like Mion's off script, and that's why it was easier to solve, and that's why people like Rena helped to capture her, and this is also an explanation to who the people chasing her was that she referenced before stabbing Keiichi. One more. Also, I like the idea of Mion killing the grandmother earlier, since it was shown in Himatsubushi that while they were similar, Mion did not share the empathy the grandmother had. Either the grandmother was dead before the crazy stuff went down, and that helped Mion go crazy. I also think that the grandmother could have been the first victim in Watanabe, which starts Mion's killing spree, maybe triggered her from wanting to protect Keiichi after he broke into the shed. So the idea of the grandmother is very interesting in Watanabe because it does seem like Mion's very loyal to her, but it turns out that she was lying and the grandmother's been dead for a bit. It's just kind of a question of when did the grandmother die? Is it sort of like well, I shouldn't say that, but like a thing where she's been dead before the art starts? I kind of like the idea, like where it said at the end that maybe Mion killed her, and that's why she sort of went crazy. She had this free reign because the grandmother's dead. I mean, if you kill the grandmother, you're technically the net's head, so maybe that got to her. Or maybe she thinks she can't go back after that. Like a reason for killing I like is when Keiichi broke into the shed and Mion kind of found out, and so she tried to protect Keiichi, but maybe the grandmother said that he had to die anyway, so in an act of rebellion she killed the grandmother. I kind of like that. That seems like a pretty good one. But yeah, I think that's important. And that's all for Mion. Let's we'll go to the side characters. I mean, if you haven't looked at the sheet and you have just been following, then I guess slight spoiler, but the big theory I did, or big discovery, was I think I have a pretty good answer for Watanadashi final Mion walking corpse. So that thing's down to contradict a couple of things I've said with Mion, Rena, and stuff. But yeah, I still think these are good takes. I like the grandmother stuff. I like Keiichi being a traitor. If the theory I made is wrong, which would make me sad for the Watanabe thing, I just still kind of like the idea that Mion went off script. And I like this too. I think this is pretty solid. Maybe this is kind of a hot take where the switcheroos don't matter since I literally talk about them later, but yeah, next off we'll do Takano. Next we're doing Takano, spooky Takano, a very fun and interesting character. So let's just get started. Have two categories for Takano. We have Snoopy Takano. Out of all the characters, I feel like Takano is inherently the most suspicious. Most suspicious right off the bat. It's probably a combination of her personality and the voice actor. She does give off a vibe of being a huge red herring, but she's involved in way too much for me to believe it. Her apparent motivations seem to be purely investigative work on Hinamizawa, which she claims is a hobby, but I don't fully trust that. I've made the connection with her to the clinic, which is still a large area of suspicion to me, and while I don't know what the outsider group's motivations are, the fact that they are plotting in Hinamizawa makes having Takano as an information gatherer rather reasonable. So I do think Takano just gives a suspicious vibe. It's just the way she acts. The voice actor does a great job at making her sound suspicious, and just that itself, just the fact that she inherently feels suspicious without having to do much, does kind of seem like a red herring. But she's just she's involved in so much where you literally just can't call it a red herring. It's a little crazy to do that, in my opinion. And it seems like her motivation is, like, from what we've seen, she just likes investigating Hinamizawa's past, all of it. So, which she says is a hobby, which could be true if she is like a lone wolf, not in a group thing. And she can just get a little extreme with that. I kind of like that theory, but I also like the idea that, you know, clinic outsider group stuff, if they are in, since they are in Hinamizawa, I don't hate the idea that Takano is there to gather information for whatever they're plotting. The first 3 arcs had a moment where Takano and Tomotaki, but Takano initiates it, explains some background information about Keiichi, about the Watanabe killings. If this is what causes the weird things or Keiichi breaking the script, it could mean that informing Keiichi is part of the plan. So yes, in every arc, you know, when I say every arc, I usually don't include the 4th arc, just so I don't have to specify it every time. But yeah, there's always a moment where Takano and Tomotaki are together, but it's usually Takano who starts the conversation and reveals Keiichi about the murders and what happened in the past. And usually you could say that's the starting point for where weird things happen, but in Onitatashi it happened a little earlier. So I don't know if it's breaking, if that's the point where stuff happens, but it definitely like motivates Keiichi to do some stuff in response to learning the information. So I still think it's pretty important to note that, at least. Also, the interaction with Keiichi and Higurashi seems almost like Takano stating that she's an outsider too, breaking the script. I think this is a very, very good point to the scene. Like, we have that sketchy confrontation between Keiichi and Takano where she claims that they both aren't where they're supposed to be, pointing that maybe Takano's in a similar position to Keiichi, being an outsider. Yeah, I think we talk more about Takano's relevancy in Higurashi, because, you know, after this she just dies, apparently. But yeah, I like the idea that Takano is an outsider. I think it's pretty solid. And naturally, for the second thing, we're talking about the crispy Takano theory. I've stated this since Watanabe. I still like it today. I think this is a very good answer to the Watanabe question, the Takano part anyways. But I am putting this on a more character theory, because if it worked in Watanabe, it kind of applies for all of the arts, especially 2 and 3. And 3 kind of does it differently, so I thought it was worth talking about in this part. But yeah, this is probably one of the most solid theories I like anyways. I don't know if I should put this there, blah blah blah. Well, actually, no, I should read this. I don't know if I should put this theory here since it's more prevalent in Watanabe. If the situation occurs throughout the 3 arts, which I think it does, then Takano is a walking corpse that both Keiichi and Tomotaki talk to often. Sorry. I've already given my answer to this mystery, and it feels like a good answer to me. The situation slightly changes from Watanabe to Higurashi, in which they identified the body in one but not the other. So Watanabe, finish the paragraph, Hayden. But it doesn't really change their theory. Basically, I believe the person found the burnt. Basically, I believe that the person found burnt. Okay, I was just derping. Basically, I believe that the person found burnt is actually Takano, and the person Mino is a fake. In this case, I believe that the burnt body is actually used to hide the appearance rather than the identity because of the two different situations in Art 2 and 3. Since I'm guessing the real Takano probably does not look the same. Also referring to this previous theory, Takano pseudo-claiming to be an outsider might be a hint that she's a fake. I really do feel like this is the best answer to the question without anything supernatural going on. This is kind of interesting because with my new Watanabe theory, I probably should go back and look if I can find anything different with Takano during the times where she's supposed to be dead, so basically through the storage thing, but I doubt I will. So basically, I think that they found the burnt body. I believe if they did do a DNA test, which they said they proved that it was Takano being badly burnt, then I like the idea that the Takano we know is actually not the real Takano, and she's just kind of taking her place while probably to investigate stuff. I think this, again, if you can confirm that the body in the burnt one is Takano, this is like almost the only answer. You have a lot less room to think compared to the Mion corpse walking thing. And then I state, in this case, I believe that the burnt body is actually used to hide the appearance rather than the identity. So even if they assume it's Takano because she disappeared, it's good to, instead of like, you usually burn a body to hide the identity, but in this case I think it's to hide the appearance, because there probably is a difference in appearance if I believe in this theory that a fake Takano took over the place of the other one. Again, Takano claiming to be an outsider feels like she might be hinting at that she's not the real Takano. And we go into this a bit more in the next one, so I want to read that one first. The next step to this theory would be, when did the switch happen? If I choose to not go with a switch a while ago, it would make sense. If I choose to go with a switch a while ago, it would make sense that people didn't notice a change in their appearance. On the other hand, if the switch happened recently, then the appearance must be pretty similar. I'm also 90% sure the first time Keiichi met Takano was when he walked by her and she had no sprite, which also might be a clue that the switch did not happen before this sort of Higurashi. Also, the fact that she fooled someone like Mion who's super connected to the villagers is weird, but looking back at the corpse, Takano and Mion did not interact too much. Probably the longest was the meeting at the end of the Watanabe festival in Higurashi, but even that was too long. So the next step of this theory, which I guess I didn't explain too much in the previous observations, is when did the switch happen? So first I said if the switch happened a while ago, then it would make sense nobody can see the difference, because let's say she's been there for years, let's say 5 years if you go back to the OG murders. Like, here's a wild meme theory. What if she was the murderer for the dam manager, and then she just took the place of Takano? There you go, more memes. But something like that. But the problem is, if it was recent, why didn't people notice? And I mean, if they obviously have to look pretty similar to the original, but like if you look at when Takano's, like if it happened just before she died, then it made sense why people like Mion or Rena didn't notice the change, because like they barely had interaction with her. But I really like this point, and I'm pretty like 99% sure, like in Higurashi, when Mion was like touring with us and maybe Rena around the village, and we're meeting non-spider characters, and Keiichi's like, oh, I don't know these guys at all, I don't remember them at all. And I'm fairly sure Takano passed by, and she's like, oh, this is Takano who works as a nurse. And she had no sprite. Now this could be an indication that the sprite was not drawn, but thankfully, because of the Alchemist patch, or maybe the sprite or the Steam game in general, we actually do have character sprites before they're formally introduced. So, and she was introduced later on anyway, so it doesn't make sense. So I think that might be a hint that the original Keiichi actually met the original Takano walking past, and they didn't show the sprite because you might be able to tell a difference between the fake Takano. So I think that's a pretty spicy addition on, and I like it. But yeah, that's my Takano theories. Again, we'll go more into her now, but I really like the crispy Takano, and well, the Snoopy Takano is just some good observations in general. Next, we'll go to the potential boyfriend, Tomotaki. Next up, Tomotaki, ace photographer Tomotaki. Obviously not a lot for him, but let's see what I write first. The Tomotaki thing. Guess I'm getting a little cute with the titles. Sorry if it doesn't actually help organize stuff. Tomotaki is kind of a weird character to talk about. Besides being a victim, everything else is just speculation, so I'm definitely waiting for some more information in future arcs. I do think that the fact that he is using a fake alias while having maybe romantic friendship with Takano, who I also think is using a fake alias, is pretty suspicious. That being said, I don't necessarily think they're working together, or at least Tomotaki is not on Team Clinic. The two possibilities I'm thinking of is maybe that he's part of the military because of the outfit and the natural messy way the disaster was handled, or that he is a reporter, since it's been said that Hinamizawa does have a problem with reporters, and he comes at the summer of every year where there is a murder. The reporter job is also made sense why Takano would be friends with him to trade information. It's also important to note that Tomotaki was at Hinamizawa before the murders, so maybe the murders aren't his only goal, but if he is a reporter, it makes sense that he was investigating the protests, since it hasn't been revealed how long he has been visiting the village. So yeah, Tomotaki is a weird character. He dies in every arc, though it feels like his deaths in Watsunodashi and in Totoroshi aren't as vital. Maybe a bit more into Totoroshi than in Watsunodashi. We do know that he's using a fake alias for sure when they autopsied him, which is probably the most suspicious part about him. Also, like, this kind of supports the crispy Takano theory, that they're both like using fake aliases, which is pretty funny. That being said, just because they're like very friendly, I don't think they have to be working together. The military part might have been a bit confusing, but obviously if we're using the visual clue that he has an army tag and military outfit, mainly the army tag thing, which means he probably was at least in the military, unless he's just cosplaying really hard, which it's respectable. I don't hate it. But I really like the idea that he's actually just like a reporter getting some undercover scoops at Hinamizawa. It sounds a lot better to me. It made sense why he comes there every summer for the time of the murder. And again, there's the information in Himetsubushi that he was visiting before the murders happened, but I mean, it made sense with the protest. It's just a question of how long has he been visiting? Like, was it pre-protest? But like, since we don't know the information, can't really think about that. But yeah, Tomotaki is just a guy who gets killed a lot. I'm sure there will definitely be more information of him in the answer, so I'm waiting for that. But that's my take on Tomotaki. For Irie, surprisingly enough, I have literally nothing on Master Irie. Let's read what I put though. Surprisingly, I don't have much to say about him except he's the owner of the clinic, which is super suspicious in the clinic theory. But honestly, he hasn't done much to show that. Probably the biggest moment was when he's joking about turning people into slaves with an injection, which could be a jab at the people who believe in that theory, or it can be a meta nod. So yeah, like, as much as I want to suspect Irie because I do like the clinic theory, he's literally done nothing to cause suspicion besides some of his actions in Higurashi. And I know I'm missing the pill thing. And, I do talk about that later because I honestly just forgot about it when I was writing that. So we'll get to his suicide a bit. But yeah, he's just been very friendly. He did say that thing about Keiichi's house, which was kind of suspicious, but like, what can I really take off that? Even in Himasabushi, he makes an appearance for when he was treating the kidnapped grandson, but it's not like anything happened from that either. Maybe the fact that he didn't call the police, but we don't know if he did or did not call the what's it called, Okonomiya police, might mean that because it feels like he knew what was happening, but if he didn't call the police, that might make him a bit more suspicious. But there's not much I can really talk about. Again, there was that scene where he was joking around with Keiichi. It's like, oh, don't worry, it's not like my injections will turn you into slaves. If it was, I would have like a bunch of maids or whatever. Which does feel, again, like a really big jab at people, like, oh, you actually think there's an injection that makes you mind controlled? Huh? Well, let's mock you a bit. But again, I don't in my personal opinion, I don't think like those type of things usually deter me from my theories. It's not really like proving me wrong, it's just like the author acknowledging that it's a popular thing and like it could just be misdirection. But yeah, that's all I have on Irie for now. Again, we'll talk about him a bit later, but not too much. He seems like a friendly guy. If I didn't come up with the clinic theory, I wouldn't be too suspicious of him, I think, at all. Next off, we have Lethal Oishi, the big O himself. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about him, and I'm sure we'll talk about him more. But let's see what we wrote with Oishi's baseball glove. See if this is hot or not. Throughout the series, it's been shown that Oishi is locked on to the Sonozaki family, to the point where no other possible culprits matter. I think the main motivation from the information given, besides his duty as a cop, would be that he was friends with the victim of the first murder. This shows that Oishi is probably sure that, at least for that murder, the Sonozakis are the culprits. This doesn't mean that they are the culprits for every murder, and I kind of like the idea of Oishi trying to pin the murders on them anyways as an act of revenge. So yeah, I like this idea because, like, what are Oishi's motivations? We know that he really wants to get the Sonozaki family. He feels like they are responsible for a lot of them, a lot of the crimes. The only other motivational things we've seen from Oishi besides him being a cop was his friendship with the first victim in Himasabushi. And I like in the first section, it's like, it's interesting to think that Oishi might know that the Sonozakis aren't responsible for some, but still want to pin the murder on them. Either intentionally or not. Like, maybe he really does think that the Sonozakis did them all when maybe some of them they didn't. So it's kind of like anyways, he's definitely a bit tunnel visioned, and I like the idea that, like, throughout the years, Oishi's desperation of catching the Sonozakis is sort of like on the rise, and eventually maybe he commits himself to doing like dirtier ideas to get him. maybe even possible of trying to frame them for something would be kind of a cool way to do about it. But that's mostly just speculation from the tunnel vision aspect of it. So let's see what else I put. Big paragraph here. Going into the meat of this, I like the idea of Oishi being involved with the 3 characters that used a metal bat. Contradicting myself that I think that there's no relation between them using a metal bat. But I think this is pretty good. If I am to assume that it's not some strange coincidence. So, actually, I covered for myself. Nice. Looking at the connections between Satoshi, Keiichi, and Rena, besides that the fact that they lived in Hinamizawa is Oishi. Now for Rena, it's probably the most speculative claim, but I think the fact that Oishi was even investigating Rena was strange, since it was definitely out of his jurisdiction, and the information he gave to Keiichi seems way too good for him to have gotten it by chance through listening as he passed by. It's been shown that Oishi does leave out crucial information, even to his allies, so I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't give Keiichi the full information. As for Satoshi and Higurashi, it's been said that Oishi has been on the Hojos for a while, but even beyond that, with the Satoshi/Keiichi connection, I can assume that Oishi had a similar interaction with both of them. As for Keiichi, it's not like there's been any scenes connecting Oishi to the metal bat, but Oishi has also been seen using manipulation before, and I do think that putting a lot of pressure, a lot of pressure, good one, a lot of pressure, and stressing out the 3 could have been why they used the metal bats. A good example of this is on Katsushi, where Keiichi was already losing his mind. Then Oishi over a phone call switched his position and said that the curse was real, but all the evidence points that he does not believe in the curse. As for why the metal bat, I have no idea. If this is an important point, there should be some more information on the future. So this is going into, again, the idea that the metal bat thing is relevant, which 3 people using a metal bat does kind of feel like it should be. And like I said, their connections are what? They lived in Hinamizawa. They were kind of friends. I mean, not Keiichi and Satoshi, but they were all in a similar friend group. But other than that, their connections are to Oishi. But yeah, now we don't know that Oishi was investigating Rena prior to the incident, but him investigating Rena was out of his jurisdiction, so he must have been doing it on his own time. And he said he got a lot of this information from eavesdropping, which just sounds fishy. I feel like Oishi definitely has some more knowledge about this incident that he just didn't tell Keiichi. And we've seen it time and time again that while he does give Keiichi good pointers, he also likes to keep information for himself because, again, ultimately his goal is to catch the Sonozakis. I'm sure he might slightly care about Keiichi, but there's no point of giving him the benefit of the doubt for being true at this point. And again, we're using this Satoshi Keiichi connection, which I really like. I feel like I talked about this later, so I mean we might as well talk about it now so we don't have to talk about it later. Wait, didn't I? No, I literally talked about it. Did I remember? Okay, whatever. But I like the idea that we use Oishi's interactions with Keiichi sort of as from all 3 arts, and how Satoshi's interactions with Oishi happened in his lifetime, where it started high and ended low. Also, even without the connection, we do know that Oishi was questioning and hounding the Hojo family since the 2 parents died, so I think it's safe to say that they have the connection. And obviously, since we've been following Keiichi, we haven't seen Oishi talk about metal bats or baseball or aid them on to killing someone with a baseball bat, but it doesn't feel like that would be the way to go about it anyways. I really like the idea of just putting a lot of stress on all of the characters, because I can see that as a motivation for all of the assault slash murders involving the metal bat. Maybe Satoshi's is a little different, but I think it's fine to say that. And then I bring up the good old example of in Anu Takashi, where Oishi made a phone call and he's like, Keiichi, let me tell you about this thing, dude. The curse is totally real. He literally just switches that from previously saying, oh yeah, I think the villagers are in on this. He's like, oh, the curse is real, which just stresses out Keiichi even more. And it's funny because the next time we see him, he literally just doesn't feel like he's saying that it's real again. So I do kind of like the meme idea that someone was just doing an Oishi impression, but I don't know. I didn't look back. I doubt it. But yeah, I like it. I feel like if there is a connection, it has to be Oishi, because there's no one else, I think. Because yeah, when Rena was gone, the only named character that interacted with her, besides maybe quote-unquote Oyashiro-sama, would be Oishi for the investigation. So I like putting those together. Just some afterthoughts usually. Also, I think I mentioned this before, but I like the idea of Oishi helping Satoshi cover up the murder since he's in the best position. Also, the theory kind of contradicts Oishi in the future, but maybe Oishi put a few hints protecting him in the book and regrets it, or maybe he's trying to cover up his crimes. Also, in the two arcs where Oishi was close to Keiichi as Sonozaki died. Yeah, we talked about the cover-up thing. This point is like, in the future, it does seem like Oishi legitimately wants to find out what happened. But there could be a million reasons why. He could have mellowed out. Maybe he did make himself look suspicious in some parts of the book because he wants to kind of atone for it, but he doesn't want to outright say that he was guilty for some of this stuff. Or maybe he's masking some of his own crimes in the book. That could be a thing. Also in both Onitakashi and Watanagashi, where Oishi and Keiichi had some sort of alliance, a Sonozaki died, and in Watanagashi too, Sonozaki dies. So I think that's important to note, that dead Sonozakis happen when you team up with Oishi. And yeah, I think that's it for Oishi. Again, definitely talk about him more, and that goes for the character theories, which I think is fine. Again, we skipped Keiichi, but I don't know if I have more to add to Keiichi. Like, I don't necessarily think he is not a real person, but like, if I put a Keiichi section, I don't really have something I would add to it. Again, maybe a Shion section would have been fine to talk about how she might be more in the Yakuza part of the family. But we didn't really miss anyone, like Oryu, Kimiyoshi, both nothing. Chia. Yeah, Chia. I mean, I can see Chia being evil, but like, who cares? I don't think that's worth talking about. So yeah, we finished the character series. Now we'll get to the arc theories next.